We just refinanced our mortgage, and if we play our cards right, it will not only buy our kids houses, but it could also pay for their weddings. Hey, I'm Brendan, and every week you're subscribed here, you get a video about personal finance, productivity, or something similar. Initially, last year in 2020, I called our mortgage broker, and he basically said, look, it's not worth refinancing. There's not enough money to be made here by the banks. I won't even do the loan as your mortgage broker. Don't worry about it. And that was fine by me. I even made a video about what you need to know about refinancing. I said in the video, hey, we're not going to do it. We're not worried about it. We've already got a good rate. Then we got some junk mail, or at least what I thought was junk mail, and it advertised us saving something like $200 a month with some crazy low rate. And I thought, okay, more junk mail. Let's put it in the recycle. But then I saw that the mail was actually from the people who currently had our mortgage, which was strange because to me that meant, well, they've already got our info, so they should know whether or not this is like a legitimate offer. It's not just a shot in the dark. So I made some calls and it turned out the deal looked really good. Here's the numbers. Our old payment was $1,673 per month. Our new payment is only $1,455 a month. 1673 minus 1455. If all this math is wrong, I'm gonna be upset. Okay. That's a net savings of $218 per month. Of course, the bank has to make their money, so as part of the refinance terms, we took out another $6,500 in debt just from fees that they're charging, and that gets rolled into the mortgage principal. However, also as part of the deal, we got a check for $1,321. So that offsets those costs a little bit in my mind, and it reduces them down to $5,179. Now, if we do the math to break even, it will take exactly 2 years to cover that remaining cost and come out ahead. The refinance also knocked off 11 months off of our term, and if you do the math, 11 months at our old payment rate is worth just over $18,000. So it's definitely a good move for us financially to go ahead and do this. And saving $218 a month is nice, it's good. We could buy some AirPods every month and a half, or we could go out to eat at our favorite Thai place like 2 or 3 times a week, easy. But instead of just absorbing that extra money into our lifestyle and buying cool stuff or tasty food, I started to think about longer term goals. In general, I've been thinking a lot about sinking funds. And if you're not familiar with sinking funds, basically, it's just a dedicated account or a place for you to save up for predictable purchases. It's not like it's some special feature by one bank that I'm like endorsing. It's just you allocating that money in that place for a defined purpose. Typically, people think about 1 to 5 years ahead and they stash the money away in something like a high yield savings account because they know that that future roof repair or those new tires or whatever it is are coming. Then having this cash set in place means you don't have to pay all the interest rates that you would otherwise have to pay if you borrowed money to buy the car or you put it on your credit card. It means that you pay as little as possible for whatever that future expense is. It's great. But then I got thinking, what would it look like for us to forecast out and think about, like, what are the big things that are 20 years away or 30 years away, and how could we use this money now to try and cover those expenses? And if we have that long to think about it, we probably don't even need to just have it in a savings account. What would happen if we invested that money? Could that also pay for some future life jump-starting gifts for our kids? Now things are getting interesting. Recently, my wife and I had a baby, and it made me start to think about what it means to be a parent and the kind of wonderful parents that we've had. They've supported us in all manner of ways, including financial ways. It's incredible all that they've done. They also gave us huge non-financial gifts of time, advice, grace, and sweat equity in remodeling this house that I'm in right now. And their gifts of patience and generosity are really the only reason why my wife and I didn't start our marriage just laden with debt. Granted, since then, my wife and I have made relatively good decisions and have saved up for things. We started investing early. We bought less house than the banks say we can afford and what's typical for people that make income like ours. But having that incredible head start financially has been almost invaluable. Because that's been so incredible for us, it made me think, how could we potentially do something like that for our kid or future kids? And the thing is that my wife and I don't make a ton of money. And so to think about those kind of future costs and how big they can be is a little bit daunting. But what we have on our hands is time and a little bit of extra cash based on this refinance. So let's try and project out into the future exactly what those costs are and how impactful that $218 per month can be. And whether or not you're a parent or just someone who's thinking about their own life and the expenses that are coming up in the long term, hopefully this can be a helpful thought exercise so we can kind of see together what this looks like. How can we map out those expenses and then how can we plan for them? Since our baby is still really young, we don't have any big ticket expenses that we plan for, at least for the next like 13 or 14 years. So we have all that time to start saving and investing this money. I'd say the first potential thing on the horizon would be like a cheap starter car, and that's, 15, 16 years away. So what's a cheap starter car then? Maybe $7,000? Let's put that on the tab. And there could be another potential kid in the future. So for the sake of argument, we'll also factor in potential future kid number 2. Now, after kid number 1 one gets that car, they'll probably go to college shortly after that. And so college is kind of its own like financial discussion because there are a lot of parts to it. Will your kids even go to college? Will they have scholarships and grants? Do you have a 529 already set up to where you can start saving now there and receive all the benefits around specifically saving in that vehicle? Well, all that aside, I'm assuming that there will still be some costs over and above any of the scholarships or 529 money that becomes available. So for the sake of this exercise, we'll just plan on each kid having $5,000 per year allocated to their college expenses. Also, around the same time that kid number 1 goes to college, kid number 2 will need their first car, so that's another $7,000. Then there's a little stretch of time here where both kids are potentially in college, siphoning away $5,000 per year per kid. And then after that, if millennials and Gen Zs have taught us anything, there could be a little kind of dead space afterwards where the kids need a little support from mom and dad. So I've got $10,000 factored in for that kind of general post-college support. After that, I assume that the next big expenses that come could be marriage and home down payments. I personally think that it might be good to keep these kind of gifts a secret just so the kids are as motivated as possible, and then they're more surprised if and when they actually get to happen. On the whole, people are getting married slightly later and later, but even if that trend kind of slows down, we probably still have 24, 25, 26 years to save. A wedding for kid number 1 could potentially happen around 2045 and kid number 2 maybe around 2047. And as we know, weddings can cost anything from a few $100s down at the courthouse somewhere well into 6 figures. But I factored in $40,000 for each. And maybe in 24, 25 years from now, $40,000 for a wedding won't seem like very much, but hey, it's a lot more than zero. As you can see by the table, the last few years here add up quickly. Finally, to complete the mega life-starting gift package for these kids, home down payments. $40,000 each may not even go that far as today's real estate market and trying to put 20% down on a loan to avoid PMI, but even if it's not enough for them to completely have their own down payment there, it'll at least be a massive jumpstart. If the 2 down payment gifts happen around 2047 and 2049 respectively, that brings our overall gift total up to $224,000. Oh wow, that's a lot. Granted, wise people recommend following a distinct set of priorities here. You've got to be financially secure and keep a roof over your head and all that first. Then you can prioritize your own retirement, make sure you're relatively sorted there, and then think about these kind of optional, amazing little gifts for your kids. Well, not so little. And I agree, it's really wonderful and exciting to think about giving our kids this kind of jump start, but just like whenever you're on a plane, you've got to put on your own oxygen mask first and then help the people beside you. So if this whole plan gets a little derailed with something in the future, that's fine. The kids will be fine. They just hopefully won't see this video. Now, how does our refinance factor into this whole thing again? Let's do some nerding and find out. Our overall total of $224,000 is essentially due in 28 years from now. For the sake of this exercise, we'll assume a very average stock market return of 9% per year. And for the sake of easy math, we won't factor in complicated things like fees and taxes and everything else because I'm not that good at math anyway. If we start at that goal and we work our way backwards, it actually starts to look like maybe we have too much money left over because we would only need to invest $158.79 per year at that 9% return to get to $224,000 28 years from now. If we did go ahead and invest the full $218 a month at that 9% return and we waited 28 years, we'd actually have $307,000 total. But there's a big fat fly in the ointment here, and that's the periodic withdrawals to pay for those different gifts, to pay for those cars, those years in college, the 10 grand for when they're out of college and they need to come home and live in the spare bedroom and have us pay for their cell phone bill or whatever, plus those giant wallops of wedding, down payment. Those costs are going to eat away at the balance overall in the account, just like termites trying to eat the building while you're trying to build it. Like super powerful termites. Big teeth. So our math needs to include these periodic withdrawals so that we can figure out if it's going to last or if we're going to come up short. First, let's put that small amount to the test, the $158. As you can see on this chart, it really holds up fairly well because we initially created that big balance here in the first 15 years. We make it through cars, we make it through college years, and then we start to lose big when those $40,000 lumps start to come in and just crush the account. By the time the dust settles, we are short by well over $100,000. So that's not going to work. How about our full $218 $218 per month in our refinance. How does that shake out? Of course, it also holds all the way through college. It even makes it through a wedding and a down payment before finally crashing and burning at the very end. That final down payment gift for kid number 2 who doesn't exist just put it over the edge. Okay, now we have this format. Let's just throw $250 a month at it. And it totally crushes the goal. We actually have too much money left over. We end up with $24,000 extra. And these kids don't need that big of a down payment. Let's instead try and dial in and get the exact amount that we need to survive all those periodic gifts and end up with minimal money left over at the end. $250 a month was too hot. $218 was too cold. $233.56 per month is just right. As you can see, we weather the storm of all those gifts, and then right at the end, we slide into home plate and have basically nothing left with that final down payment gift. The amazing thing here is the effective discount that we're getting on all this. That's the whole reason for this proposed kind of method of forecasting a long time in advance, is the interest that we make along the way makes all of this way cheaper for my wife and I. If we invest right there at that perfect Goldilocks level, the actual amount of cash that we've invested over time is a little over $78,000. That's like getting 65% off of all these different life-changing gifts. That's incredible. I'd take 65% off of anything. I realized that was probably a lot more math than either you or I bargained for. Definitely was for me, but I learned a little bit in this exercise and I think it was really interesting. When we have the gift of time to kind of think ahead and think beyond our desire for lifestyle bumps and new AirPod Max, whatever, headphone things, and all the other cool stuff that we could buy with some money that comes into our life like this, we can think a little bit longer term and potentially benefit the entire generation that comes after us by setting them up for financial success, by giving them this head start and this clean slate. Thanks for watching this video and making it through with me, thinking through all of that math and the potential for the future. Have you ever thought about this kind of thing before and kind of the long-term version of a sinking fund? Baby's crying, so I'm gonna have to go soon. Remember to like the video if you didn't hate it in the depths of your heart. And in case it made you think, or you wanna send this to your spouse so I can be the one to introduce this topic, then go ahead and do that. I'd appreciate that a lot, actually. And remember to not turn on notifications so that you can spend time with your family and the people that you love, be present in the moment, and not get yet another buzz in your pocket. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.